The rope cut into her wrists, minus 25 degrees. She was 7 months pregnant, and her husband had left her outside to die. Melissa Harrison had only made one mistake that night. She answered a phone call from her mother. That's all it took. One phone call, and her husband decided she needed to learn a lesson that would kill her. For hours, she hung there in the blizzard, tied to her own porch, watching the lights in her house go dark, feeling her baby kicking weaker and weaker, knowing that no one was coming to save her. But then, a light turned on across the street. The quiet neighbor who barely spoke to anyone. The woman everyone thought was just a retired doctor living alone. She wasn't. And what happened next? It changed everything. Because when someone saves your life, you never expect to discover they're hiding a $2.3 billion secret. This is the story of the coldest night and the warmest rescue, and how one woman's worst nightmare became her greatest transformation. Stay with me, because what happens next, you won't believe. The rope cut into Melissa's wrists as the blizzard wind drove ice crystals into her face like 1,000 tiny knives. She blinked, tried to move, couldn't. Her hands were tied behind her back, her ankles bound together. The rough wood of the porch railing pressed against her spine. The cold hit her like a wall. Minus 25 degrees, maybe colder with the wind chill. Melissa's teeth chattered so hard she thought they might crack. Her breath came in white puffs that disappeared instantly into the howling darkness. How long had she been out here? She remembered Kyle's face, the rage in his eyes, his hands shoving her through the door, the sound of the lock clicking. But that felt like hours ago, days ago, lifetimes ago. Her pregnant belly pressed against her thin nightgown. 7 months along, the baby kicked. At least the baby was still moving, still alive. It's okay, Melissa whispered through numb lips. Mommy's here. Mommy's got you. The wind screamed in response. Snow swirled around her in blinding sheets. She couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. Her fingers felt strange, distant, like they belonged to someone else. She tried to wiggle them. Nothing, no sensation at all. The wedding ring on her left hand pressed into her skin. She couldn't feel it anymore. The physical numbness matched 4 years of emotional numbness. That ring had been a shackle anyway. Melissa's mind drifted back to earlier that evening. Dinner had burned. She'd been distracted by a phone call from her mother. Grace had called from a new number. Melissa had answered without thinking. Sweetheart, it's been 2 years. Please, I just want to talk to my daughter. Melissa had frozen. Kyle didn't allow contact with her mother. He said Grace was toxic, manipulative, that she'd only hurt Melissa. But hearing her mother's voice after 2 years of silence had cracked something open inside her chest. Mom, I can't talk right now. Is he there, Melissa? Are you safe? I have to go. She'd hung up, but Kyle had been standing in the doorway, watching, listening. Who was that? Nobody, wrong number. Don't lie to me. His voice had been quiet, dangerous. I heard you say Mom. The burned chicken had been forgotten. Kyle's face had gone red, then purple, then a shade of white that scared her more than the yelling. He'd grabbed her arm, squeezed hard enough to bruise. I told you, no contact with that woman. She doesn't get to poison you against me. She's my mother. I'm your husband. You promised to obey me. Melissa had tried to pull away. That's when he'd really lost it. The slap came first, hard across her face, then another. She'd fallen against the counter. Her hand had gone instinctively to her belly. Please, the baby. That baby is mine. You're mine. And you're going to learn to follow the rules. He dragged her to the front door. The storm had been raging outside, snow piling up in drifts against the house. Kyle, please, it's freezing out there. Maybe the cold will cool you off, help you think about what you've done. I'll freeze to death. His smile had been terrifying. Good. Maybe that'll finally solve my problem. He'd shoved her outside, tied her to the railing with rope he'd brought from the garage. Not impulsively, not in the heat of rage. He'd gone to get the rope, planned it. If I can't have you, no one will. The door had slammed, the lock had clicked, and Melissa had been alone in the screaming dark. That had been hours ago, had to be hours ago. The sun had been setting when he'd thrown her out. Now it was full dark. After midnight, probably. Her contractions had started an hour ago, maybe longer. Braxton Hicks from the stress and cold. At least she hoped they were Braxton Hicks. Real labor at 7 months would be a disaster. The baby kicked again, weaker this time. Stay with me, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. We have to be okay. But Melissa wasn't sure she believed that anymore. Her body was shutting down. She could feel it. The drowsiness creeping in. The strange warmth that people said came right before you froze to death. Through the white curtain of snow, she could barely see the house across the street. Dr. Thorne's place. The quiet woman who'd moved in 2 years ago. Kept to herself. Nodded politely at the mailbox but never lingered to chat. A light was on in the upstairs window. Melissa tried to call out. Her voice came as a whisper. The wind swallowed it whole. She tried again. Help, please, help me. Nothing, no sound but the howling storm. The cold was inside her now, in her bones, in her blood, crystallizing everything. She stopped fighting the ropes, stopped trying to twist free, just let her head fall back against the railing. The stars were invisible behind the storm clouds. No moon, no light except the distant glow from Dr. Thorne's window. Melissa talked to her baby. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry I brought you into this. You deserved better. You deserved a real father, a safe home, a mother who was strong enough to leave. Her voice cracked. I should have left years ago. I knew. Deep down, I always knew, but I was scared and stupid. And now we're both going to pay for my weakness. The baby didn't kick. Melissa's heart seized. No, no, please move, please move. There, a flutter, faint but there. Relief flooded through her so powerfully she sobbed. The tears froze on her cheeks. She was going to die out here. She knew that now, but maybe the baby could survive. Maybe someone would find them in time. Maybe they could save the baby even if they couldn't save her. That thought brought a strange peace. If dying meant her baby lived, that was enough. That had to be enough. Melissa closed her eyes. The darkness behind her eyelids was warmer than the world around her. She drifted, floated, started to feel sleepy. So sleepy. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. Sweetheart, it's been 2 years. Please. Melissa wished she'd stayed on the phone. Wished she'd said I love you. Wished her last words to her mother hadn't been a lie about it being a wrong number. The wind changed direction. Snow hit her face from a different angle. And then through the storm, she heard something. A door opening. Light spilled across a driveway like liquid gold. Melissa forced her eyes open, squinted through the blizzard. Someone was coming out of Dr. Thorne's house. A figure in a dark coat, moving quickly across the street, coming toward her. Please, please let them see me. Hello? A woman's voice, strong, clear, cutting through the wind. Is someone out here? Melissa tried to answer. Her voice came as a rasp. Here, I'm here. The figure came closer, closer, and then Dr. Evelyn Thorne was kneeling in front of her, eyes wide with shock and horror. Oh my God, Melissa? Cold, Melissa managed. Can't feel anything? Evelyn's hands moved quickly, assessing, checking pulse, feeling her forehead. You're freezing. How long have you been out here? Hours. Don't know. Hours. Who did this to you? Melissa's vision blurred, darkened, the edges closing in. Kyle, my husband, the baby. Stay with me. Evelyn's voice was sharp, commanding, the voice of someone used to emergencies. Keep talking. What's your baby's name? Don't have a name yet. Don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Evelyn pulled out her phone, dialed 911. I need an ambulance, now. Woman, late 20s, pregnant, severe hypothermia. She's been tied outside in the blizzard for hours. The 911 operator's voice crackled through the speaker. Evelyn gave the address, answered questions, all while pulling off her own coat and wrapping it around Melissa's shoulders. The warmth of the coat felt like fire. Melissa whimpered, I know it hurts. That means you're still alive. Evelyn produced kitchen shears from her coat pocket, started cutting the ropes. Almost there. Almost free. The ropes fell away. Melissa's hands dropped to her lap. Still couldn't feel them. Still couldn't move them. Evelyn pulled off her own gloves, put them on Melissa's hands, then wrapped a scarf around her head. Ambulance is 12 minutes out. Too long. I'm getting you inside. Kyle, if he sees. Let him see. Evelyn's voice was steel. Let him try to stop me. She helped Melissa to her feet, more like carried her. Melissa's legs wouldn't hold weight. She stumbled. Evelyn caught her, half dragged, half carried her across the icy street to the house with the lights on. The warmth inside hit like a physical blow. Melissa gasped, cried out, the burn of returning sensation. Evelyn laid her on the couch, piled blankets on top of her, kept talking. Stay awake. Keep your eyes open. Look at me, that's good. Keep looking at me. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. I know enough. Evelyn's jaw was tight. I know what I saw. I know you've been tied outside in a blizzard. I know you're pregnant. That's all I need to know. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Melissa started to cry. Not from pain, not from cold, from warmth, from kindness from a stranger, from the overwhelming realization that she was getting to live. She hadn't realized how cold she'd been. Not just tonight, for years. Cold in her marriage, cold in her own home, frozen from the inside out. And now someone had pulled her back into the warmth. Through the front window, Melissa saw headlights, Kyle's truck pulling into their driveway. He'd been gone, out somewhere, maybe with his girlfriend, maybe just driving around waiting for her to die. He got out of the truck, saw the ambulance lights approaching. His face, illuminated in the headlights, went from confusion to rage. Evelyn saw him too, moved to stand between Melissa and the window, a small older woman acting as a shield. He can't get to you here. You're safe now. The ambulance pulled up, paramedics rushed in, loaded Melissa onto a gurney, started taking vitals. Blood pressure, temperature, oxygen levels. 89 degrees, one paramedic said. Severe hypothermia. We need to move. I'm coming with her, Evelyn said. Ma'am, are you family? I'm all she has right now. Evelyn's tone left no room for argument. She climbed into the ambulance, took Melissa's hand. You're not alone. I'm staying with you. As they pulled away, Melissa saw Kyle on their front porch, banging on Dr. Thorne's door, yelling something the sirens drowned out. Where's your husband? The paramedic asked as he adjusted the oxygen mask over Melissa's face. Melissa's body went rigid. Her free hand flew protectively to her belly. Evelyn met her eyes, understanding passed between them. He did this, Evelyn said quietly. Didn't he? Melissa nodded. One small movement, but it was enough. The truth was out. No more hiding, no more excuses about falling downstairs or walking into doors. Kyle had tried to kill her, and somehow, against all odds, she'd survived. The heated ambulance felt like paradise and torture all at once. Melissa wept. Not from pain, from the burn of warmth returning to frozen skin. That's normal, the paramedic said. His name tag read Martinez. He had kind eyes. Refreezing injury, it's going to hurt for a while. Evelyn still held Melissa's hand. Her grip was firm, steady, the grip of someone who wasn't going to let go. Martinez wrapped heated blankets around Melissa's feet. Her hands placed warm packs against her core, all while monitoring the baby's heartbeat on a portable monitor. Beep, beep, beep. The sound was the most beautiful thing Melissa had ever heard. Baby's doing okay, Martinez said. Heart rate is strong. You got lucky. Lucky. The word felt absurd. She'd nearly frozen to death. How was that lucky? But then she understood. Lucky she hadn't died. Lucky the baby had survived. Lucky a neighbor had insomnia and looked out her window at the right moment. Thank you, Melissa whispered to Evelyn. You saved my life. Anyone would have done the same. No, they wouldn't have. Melissa thought of Mrs. Patterson next door, the neighbors who'd heard her scream before, who'd called the police once or twice, who'd ultimately done nothing. You're the only one who came. Evelyn's expression flickered. Something painful moved behind her eyes. I couldn't save my daughter, but I can help you. Before Melissa could ask what that meant, the ambulance pulled into the hospital emergency bay. The doors flew open. Cold air rushed in. Melissa flinched. It's okay, Martinez said. Just a few seconds. Then we'll get you inside where it's warm. They wheeled her through automatic doors into fluorescent brightness. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and floor wax. Sounds echoed off tile floors. Voices calling out. Equipment beeping. Life continuing. A nurse appeared at her side. Trauma Bay 2. Dr. Mitchell is waiting. They rolled through a set of double doors. Melissa glimpsed other patients through partially open curtains. A child crying. An elderly man coughing. Normal emergency room chaos. Her curtained area had a bed, monitors, and a woman in scrubs with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. Amanda Mitchell looked to be in her late 30s. She had sharp eyes and an expression that said she'd seen everything twice. Melissa Harrison? Dr. Mitchell asked, already reading the chart Martinez handed her. Yes. I'm Dr. Mitchell. I'm going to examine you. Can you tell me what happened? Melissa's throat closed. The words stuck. Evelyn spoke up. She was tied outside in the blizzard for several hours. By her husband. Dr. Mitchell's expression hardened. She moved to Melissa's side, started cutting away the wet nightgown with trauma shears. How far along are you? 7 months, 28 weeks. Any contractions? Earlier, they stopped. We'll monitor you. Make sure baby's stable. Dr. Mitchell's hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking reflexes, listening to lung sounds, examining extremities. Severe frostbite on 3 fingers, right hand index, middle, and ring finger. Both feet affected, toes 2 through 4 bilaterally. She called out to the nurse. I need warm water baths, 37 to 39 degrees, not hot, and get me an ultrasound. I want to see this baby. The nurse hurried off. Dr. Mitchell continued her exam, pressed gently on Melissa's abdomen. Does this hurt? A little. Here? Yes. Dr. Mitchell's jaw tightened. You have bruising, recent, within the last few hours. Melissa's face flushed with shame. I fell. Melissa, Dr. Mitchell's voice was firm but not unkind. I've been an emergency physician for 15 years. I know what a fall looks like. This wasn't a fall. The tears came again. Melissa couldn't stop them. He pushed me. Before he tied me outside, I hit the counter. Dr. Mitchell nodded, continued documenting. I'm going to take photographs for the medical record. Is that okay? Will the police see them? Only if you want them to, but I strongly recommend reporting this. Evelyn spoke up again. The police are already involved. The 911 call, they'll want a statement. As if summoned, a man appeared in the doorway. He wore a rumpled suit and a badge on his belt. Detective Marcus Webb, I need to speak with Mrs. Harrison. Dr. Mitchell stepped between him and the bed. She's hypothermic and in distress. You can wait. This is a domestic violence case. Her husband is in the parking lot right now trying to get in. Hospital security has him contained, but he's threatening to sue for false imprisonment. I need her statement before he lawyers up. Melissa's chest tightened. He's here? He can't get to you, Detective Webb said. His voice gentled. Security won't let him pass the waiting room. But I need to know what happened, the truth, all of it. Melissa looked at Evelyn. The older woman nodded encouragingly. He tied me outside, left me there, for hours. Why? I talked to my mother. He doesn't allow that. He got angry. Detective Webb wrote in a notebook. Your husband routinely prevents you from speaking with your family? He says my mother is toxic, that she'll turn me against him. Has he hurt you before? The question hung in the air, so simple, so impossible to answer. Melissa thought of all the times she'd explained away bruises, blamed herself for making him angry, convinced herself it wasn't that bad. Yes, she whispered. Many times, but never like this. We found rope in his truck, Detective Webb said. Same kind that was used to tie you. He didn't grab it on impulse. He went to get it. That's premeditation. The word landed like a punch. Premeditation. Not a crime of passion. Not a moment of rage. Planned, calculated, murder. The nurse returned with basins of warm water. Started carefully submerging Melissa's hands and feet. The pain was immediate and intense. Melissa bit back a scream. I know, the nurse said softly. I know it hurts, but we have to rewarm the tissue slowly or you'll lose the fingers and toes. Lose them. Melissa stared at her hands in the water. Her wedding ring glinted under the fluorescent lights. That ring had been a shackle, a brand, proof of ownership. Can someone take this off? Melissa asked. The ring. I don't want to wear it anymore. The nurse looked at Dr. Mitchell. The doctor nodded. With gentle care, the nurse worked the ring off Melissa's swollen finger. It came free with some effort. The skin underneath was pale, indented. The nurse held up the ring. What should I do with it? Throw it away, Melissa said. Are you sure? It might be evidence. I don't care. I never want to see it again. Detective Webb held out an evidence bag. I'll take it, along with the rope, and I need to collect your nightgown. Everything he touched tonight becomes evidence. The hospital gown they'd given Melissa was paper thin, ties in the back leaving her exposed, like her entire marriage had been. Fragile, vulnerable, open to attack from behind where she couldn't see it coming. An ultrasound tech arrived with a portable machine, squirted cold gel on Melissa's belly. The transducer moved across her skin, and there on the screen was her baby. Tiny, perfect, moving. There's your little one, the tech said. Heart rate is 145. That's excellent. Strong. No signs of distress. Melissa sobbed with relief. The baby's okay? Baby's doing great. You did good, Mama. You protected your baby. But Melissa didn't feel like she'd done anything right. She'd stayed with a man who hurt her, put her unborn child in danger, nearly gotten them both killed. This isn't your fault, Evelyn said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. None of this is your fault. Detective Webb finished taking photographs, documented the rope burns on Melissa's wrists, the bruises on her arms and belly, the frostbite on her extremities. I need to ask you something difficult about, he said. Were you trying to leave him? What? No, I didn't even think about leaving. I just answered a phone call from my mother. So this attack happened because you spoke to your mother without permission. The way he said it made it sound insane, which it was. Completely insane. He doesn't let me have friends or talk to family or go anywhere without telling him where I am. He tracks my phone, controls all our money. I have to ask permission to buy groceries. Detective Webb wrote faster. How long has this been going on? 4 years since we got married. And you never reported it? Shame burned through her. I thought it would get better. He promised it would get better. He said he just loved me so much he couldn't stand the thought of losing me. I thought that was romantic at first. By the time I realized what it really was, I was already trapped. Dr. Mitchell placed a hand on Melissa's shoulder. You're not trapped anymore. But Melissa wasn't sure that was true. Kyle was out there, in the parking lot, waiting. He'd made bail eventually. He always did. And then what? I'm afraid, Melissa admitted. He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd kill me. I believe him. He tried to kill you tonight, Detective Webb said bluntly. That's attempted murder. But I need more evidence to make it stick. Is there anything else? Anything that shows this was planned? Melissa thought back. Kyle had been strange lately, affectionate in a way he hadn't been in years, suggesting they update their life insurance, talking about how much he loved her in front of other people. She'd thought he was changing, becoming the man she'd married. But what if he'd been setting the stage, creating a narrative of a devoted husband whose wife tragically died in a freak accident? He doubled our life insurance 3 months ago, Melissa said slowly. He said it was because of the baby, to make sure we were protected. Detective Webb's eyes sharpened. How much? $800,000. And who's the beneficiary? He said it was me, for the baby, in case something happened to him. I'll pull the policy, see if that's actually true. Detective Webb closed his notebook. I'm going to talk to your husband now, get his version of events. I'll be in touch. He left. The curtain swished closed behind him. Dr. Mitchell pulled up a stool, sat down at eye level with Melissa. You've been through severe trauma, physical and psychological. I'm admitting you for observation, at least 24 hours. You need to be monitored for hypothermia complications, and the baby needs continuous monitoring. Will I lose my fingers and toes? Too early to tell. The next 72 hours will be critical, but you're young and healthy. That's in your favor. And the baby? So far, so good, but stress like this can trigger premature labor. We're watching for that. Melissa nodded. Exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Her eyes were so heavy. Sleep, Dr. Mitchell said. You're safe here. I promise. But as Melissa's eyes drifted closed, she wondered if she'd ever feel truly safe again. Melissa woke to pale morning light filtering through hospital curtains. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then the pain in her hands and feet reminded her. The monitors beeping, the IV in her arm, the weight of her pregnant belly. It hadn't been a nightmare. It was real. Someone was sitting in the chair beside her bed. Melissa turned her head. Evelyn Thorne sat there, still in the same clothes from last night, reading a book, waiting. You stayed, Melissa said. Her voice came out rough. Evelyn looked up. Of course I stayed. Someone needed to be here when you woke up. You don't even know me. I'm getting to know you. Evelyn set down her book. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck and then frozen solid. Accurate assessment, a small smile. Dr. Mitchell was in earlier. She said you're doing well, better than expected. What time is it? 9:30 in the morning. You've been asleep for about 7 hours. 7 hours. The longest stretch of sleep Melissa had gotten in months. Usually she woke every few hours to check if Kyle was in one of his moods, to make sure she hadn't done something wrong in her sleep. A nurse came in to check vitals, a different one from last night. This one was younger, had kind eyes and a gentle touch. Good morning, Melissa. I'm Sarah. I'll be your nurse today. She wrapped a blood pressure cuff around Melissa's arm. How's your pain level? 1 to 10? 6, maybe 7. I'll get you something for that. Sarah made notes in the computer. And you have a visitor. Your mother is in the waiting room. She got here about an hour ago. Should I send her in? Melissa's heart seized. My mother? Grace Sullivan? That's the name she gave. Tears sprang to Melissa's eyes. Yes, please, send her in. Sarah left. Melissa looked at Evelyn. I haven't seen my mother in 2 years. Kyle wouldn't allow it. Then it's about time. The curtain pulled back, and there was Grace Sullivan. She looked older than Melissa remembered, more gray in her hair, lines around her eyes, but she was still her mother. Still the woman who'd raised her, who'd read her bedtime stories and bandaged scraped knees and taught her how to braid hair. Melissa. Grace's voice broke. Oh, sweetheart. Melissa burst into tears. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Grace rushed to the bedside, gathered Melissa into her arms as carefully as possible with all the wires and tubes. No, no apologies. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. They held each other and cried. Years of forced separation, years of missed phone calls and holidays and ordinary moments. All of it poured out in tears. When they finally pulled apart, Grace wiped her eyes, looked at Evelyn. Are you the neighbor who saved her? I am. Evelyn Thorne. Thank you. Grace's voice was fierce. Thank you for bringing my daughter back to me. She's stronger than she knows, Evelyn said quietly. Detective Webb appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Harrison, I need to update you. Melissa braced herself. Did you talk to Kyle? I did. He claims he went out for a drive, came home, found you gone, went looking for you, had no idea you were outside. That's a lie. I know it's a lie, and I can prove it. Detective Webb pulled out his phone, showed her screenshots. We seized his phone, found text messages to a woman named Rachel Foster, his co-worker. Melissa's stomach dropped. He's having an affair. Just an affair. He's been planning to leave you. Take a look at this message sent at 10:45 last night, right around when you were tied outside. He held up the phone. Melissa read the message. Finally be free this weekend. Weather's perfect. Accident in a blizzard. Tragic but believable. The world tilted. Melissa thought she might be sick. He planned this, she whispered. He meant for me to die. It gets worse, Detective Webb said. He pulled up more screenshots. Life insurance policy, $800,000. But you're not the beneficiary anymore. He changed it 3 weeks ago. New beneficiary is Rachel Foster. Grace gasped. He took out a policy on his pregnant wife and named his mistress as beneficiary, and then tried to kill his wife in a way that would look like an accident. We pulled his internet search history. He's been researching hypothermia deaths, how long it takes to freeze to death, whether bodies show signs of restraint after freezing. Melissa couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. This wasn't a moment of rage. This wasn't him losing control. He'd researched, planned, waited for the perfect night, a blizzard, visibility near zero. He could claim he'd gone out looking for her, that she must have wandered outside confused, fallen, couldn't get back inside, and everyone would have believed him. The grieving husband, the tragic accident. "I need to sit down," Grace said. Her face had gone pale. Evelyn guided her to a chair. Grace put her head between her knees. "Breathe," Evelyn said. "In through your nose, out through your mouth." Melissa stared at Detective Webb. "What happens now?" "Now we arrest him for attempted murder. First degree, premeditated. The evidence is overwhelming." "Will he get bail?" "I'm going to argue no bail. Flight risk, danger to the victim, but a judge will decide." The fear must have shown on Melissa's face because Detective Webb's expression softened. "I've been a detective for 20 years. I've seen a lot of domestic violence cases. Too many, and too many of them end badly." He paused. "But you survived, and you're going to testify, and we're going to put him away for a very long time." After Detective Webb left, the three women sat in silence. Grace finally spoke. "I should have fought harder when he cut off contact. I should have shown up at your door, called the police, something." "He told me you didn't want to see me," Melissa said quietly, "that you said I was dead to you." "What? No, never." Grace's face crumpled. "I tried visiting twice. The first time he said you were sleeping, didn't want visitors. The second time he showed me texts from your phone. Horrible things, saying I was a terrible mother, that you never wanted to speak to me again, that you'd get a restraining order if I kept trying. I never sent those texts. I never even knew you tried to visit. I know that now, but at the time I believed him. I thought I'd lost my daughter, that somehow I'd failed you so badly you couldn't stand to see me." The 2 years of separation suddenly made sense. Kyle had orchestrated all of it. Isolated Melissa completely. Cut her off from everyone who might help her escape. A nurse brought breakfast, oatmeal, orange juice, toast. Melissa couldn't imagine eating, but Grace insisted. "You need your strength. For the baby." The baby. Melissa's hand went to her belly. Through all of this, the baby kept moving, kept surviving. "I haven't picked a name yet," Melissa said. "Kyle wanted a boy. Said if it was a girl, we'd try again." "And what do you want?" Evelyn asked. No one had asked her that in 4 years. What did she want? Not what did Kyle want, not what was best for the marriage. What did Melissa want? "I want my baby to be healthy and safe and loved." Her voice broke. "I want to be a good mother, but I don't know if I can. Look what I let happen. I stayed with a man who tried to kill us." "Stop!" Grace's voice was sharp. "Listen to me. You survived. That's what matters. You survived, and now you can leave. That takes more strength than you know." But Melissa wasn't convinced. "I was so stupid. The signs were all there. The controlling behavior, the isolation, the way he'd be sweet one minute and terrifying the next. I ignored all of it." "That's what abusers do," Evelyn said quietly. "They don't show you who they really are until you're already trapped. By the time you see it clearly, leaving feels impossible." There was something in Evelyn's tone, something personal. "You said earlier you couldn't save your daughter," Melissa said. "What happened?" Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, her hands folded in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but sad. "Her name was Sarah. She was 26, beautiful, smart, had her whole life ahead of her." Evelyn paused. "She was in a relationship with a man who hurt her. I saw the signs, tried to get her to leave, but she loved him, believed he would change. By the time she was ready to leave, it was too late." "What happened?" "He killed her during an argument, then killed himself." Evelyn's eyes were distant. 8 years ago. I've spent every day since wondering if I could have done more. Said the right thing, forced her to get help somehow. I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry, use it. Yeah, but to remember that leaving is the hardest part, but also the most important. You got out, that's what matters." They sat in silence, two women who'd lost everything, one woman who'd survived. Dr. Mitchell returned to check on Melissa, examined her hands and feet. The frostbite was severe but manageable. You'll keep all your fingers and toes, she said, but recovery will be painful. Months of physical therapy, possibly nerve damage. We won't know for sure for a few weeks. But I'll be okay. You'll be okay. And so will your baby. After Dr. Mitchell left, Melissa asked the question she'd been afraid to ask. Where will I go when I leave here? I can't go back to that house. You'll come home with me, Grace said immediately. My apartment. It's small, but it's safe. But Kyle knows where you live. Then we'll get a restraining order. And I have a baseball bat. Despite everything, Melissa almost smiled. Evelyn spoke up. I have a better option. I own a property, a small apartment, fully furnished, security system. It's empty right now. You're welcome to stay there, both of you. I can't accept that. I can't afford rent. I don't have any money. Kyle controlled everything. Consider it part of my foundation services. I help women leave dangerous situations. Housing is part of that. Melissa looked at Grace. Her mother nodded. Okay, Melissa said. Thank you for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay you. You don't repay kindness, Evelyn said. You pay it forward. The second night in the hospital was harder than the first. Melissa couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump. Every time someone walked past her room, she tensed, waiting for Kyle to appear, to find a way in, to finish what he'd started. Grace had gone back to her apartment to pack bags for both of them. Evelyn had stepped out to make phone calls. That left Melissa alone with her thoughts. And her thoughts were not kind. She kept replaying the marriage, looking for the moment it had gone wrong. But the truth was, it had been wrong from the start. She'd just been too young and naive to see it. They'd met at a community barbecue. Kyle had been charming, attentive, made her feel like the most important person in the room. They'd dated for 6 months. He'd proposed with a beautiful ring and tears in his eyes. I can't imagine my life without you, he'd said. She'd thought it was romantic. Now she understood it was a warning. After the wedding, things had changed slowly. So slowly she hadn't noticed the water heating up around her, like a frog in a pot. By the time she realized she was being boiled alive, it was too late to jump out. First, he'd suggested she quit her teaching job. I make enough for both of us. Wouldn't it be nice to not have to work, to focus on our home? It had sounded appealing. She'd been tired. Teaching was exhausting. So she'd quit. Then he'd ask for her phone password. We're married now. We shouldn't have secrets. That had seemed reasonable. Married people should trust each other. Then he'd suggested she delete social media. Those sites are toxic. They'll just make you unhappy. You have me. You don't need fake online friends. One by one, he'd cut away her connections to the outside world, until it was just the two of them, in a house that felt more like a prison with every passing day. The physical violence had started about a year in. A shove during an argument. He'd apologized, cried, sworn it would never happen again. It happened again and again and again, each time followed by apologies, flowers, promises, and Melissa had believed him, because believing him was easier than admitting she'd made a terrible mistake. The door to her room opened. Melissa tensed, but it was just Dr. Mitchell doing evening rounds. How are you feeling? Physically or emotionally? Both. Physically, I'm okay. Everything hurts, but I'm alive. Melissa paused. Emotionally, I'm a mess. I can't stop thinking about everything I missed. All the warning signs. How did I not see what he was? Mitchell pulled up a chair, sat down. Can I tell you something? I see women like you every week. Different circumstances, same story, and they all ask the same question. How did I not see it? And what do you tell them? That abusers are experts at hiding who they are. They study you, learn what you need, what you want to hear. They become exactly what you're looking for. And by the time you see the real person underneath, you're already in too deep. But I'm smart. I went to college. I have a degree. How did I fall for it? Intelligence has nothing to do with it. Some of the smartest women I know have ended up in abusive relationships because abusers don't target stupid women. They target kind women, compassionate women, women who see the best in people and want to help. Dr. Mitchell leaned forward. Your kindness wasn't a weakness. It was used as a weapon against you. That's not your fault. The words hit something deep inside Melissa, released a pressure she hadn't known she was carrying. Thank you, she whispered. After Mitchell left, Melissa lay in the dark and cried, not from sadness, from relief, from the slowly dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as broken as she'd believed. Grace returned the next morning with suitcases. Evelyn arrived with a lawyer. This is Teresa Morrison, Evelyn said. She specializes in family law. She's going to help you. Teresa was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and eyes like steel. She shook Melissa's hand with a firm grip. Let's talk about protecting you and your baby, Teresa said without preamble. She pulled out a stack of papers. First, we're filing for an emergency protective order. This will prevent Kyle from coming within 500 feet of you. Second, we're filing for emergency divorce. Given the circumstances, the court will fast-track this. Third, we're filing for full custody of your unborn child. Can we do that? The baby isn't born yet. In cases of attempted murder of a pregnant woman, we can absolutely establish that the father is a danger to the child. He won't have any parental rights. Relief washed over Melissa. The thought of Kyle having any claim to her baby had been a nightmare. What about money? He controlled everything. I don't have access to any of our accounts. We'll freeze all marital assets, and we'll be going after restitution. He'll pay for your medical bills, your therapy, your rebuilding your life. He won't just let this happen. He'll fight. Let him fight. Teresa's smile was sharp. He tried to murder you for insurance money. He's going to prison. The divorce and custody issues are secondary to that. Over the next few hours, Teresa went through everything. Melissa signed papers, answered questions, provided passwords and account numbers for everything she could remember. Detective Webb stopped by with more updates. Kyle had been officially charged with attempted murder in the first degree, also fraud, forgery, several counts of coercive control, which had recently become a crime in their state. His bail hearing is tomorrow, Detective Webb said. I'll be there to argue against bail, but I want you to know there's a chance the judge will grant it. What? Melissa's stomach dropped. He tried to kill me. I know, and I'm going to argue that. But he has no prior arrests. He'll have a good lawyer. They'll say he's not a flight risk, that he has ties to the community, that he deserves the presumption of innocence. And if he gets out, then you stay at that safe house. You don't go anywhere alone. And you call me if you even think you see him. Detective Webb handed her a card with his personal cell phone number. I mean it. Day or night. You call me. After he left, Melissa felt the panic rising again. Kyle could be out, soon, walking free while she hid. This isn't fair, she said. I'm the victim. Why do I have to be the one in hiding? Because the system is broken, Grace said bluntly. But we're not going to let him hurt you again. Evelyn's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her expression darkened. What is it? Melissa asked. Kyle made bail an hour ago. The room went silent. How? Grace demanded. How did he already get a bail hearing? Emergency hearing. His lawyer pushed for it, argued that he needed to be out to manage his business. The judge granted bail at $100,000. He posted it. Melissa couldn't breathe. He was out. Kyle was out there. Somewhere. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. A text from an unknown number. Don't open it, Evelyn said. But Melissa already had. You stupid bitch. You think you're safe? You think you're free? You'll never be free of me. I'll find you. You and that bastard baby. Melissa's hands shook. She dropped the phone like it had burned her. Grace grabbed it, showed it to Evelyn. We need to call Detective Webb. I'm on it. Evelyn was already dialing. Melissa sat frozen. His words echoed in her mind. You'll never be free of me. Was he right? Would she ever really be free? Or would she spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder? Listen to me. Grace took Melissa's face in her hands. He wants you scared. That's how he's always controlled you. With fear. But you're not alone anymore. You have me, you have Evelyn, you have people who will protect you. But what if it's not enough? Then we'll make it enough. Detective Webb arrived within 30 minutes, took the phone, documented the threat. This violates the protective order, he said. I can have him back in jail by tonight. Do it, Melissa said. Her voice was stronger than she felt. I'm not going to let him terrorize me anymore. That's my girl, Grace said. But after Detective Webb left, Melissa allowed herself to fall apart. The tears came hard, ugly. Years of held-in pain and fear pouring out. Grace held her, rocked her like she was a child again. And Evelyn sat in the corner, watching, waiting, the silent guardian who'd pulled her from the snow. Eventually, the tears stopped. Melissa felt emptied out, hollow. I need to sleep, she said. We'll be right here, Grace promised. Melissa closed her eyes, but even in sleep, she couldn't escape. The nightmares came. Kyle's face, the cold, the feeling of being trapped, unable to move, unable to scream. She woke gasping. 3 a.m. The hospital room dark except for the glow of monitors. Grace was asleep in the chair, but Evelyn was awake, still watching. Bad dreams? Evelyn asked softly. The worst night of my life on repeat. It will get better, not quickly, but gradually. The nightmares will fade, the fear will lessen. One day you'll realize you went a whole hour without thinking about him, then a day, then a week. How do you know? Because I've been there. Different circumstances, same trauma. Evelyn paused. After my daughter died, I had nightmares for 2 years. Saw her everywhere, jumped at every sound. Therapy helped, time helped, building a new life helped. Is that why you help other women? I couldn't save Sarah, but I can save others. It won't bring her back, but it gives her death meaning, and it gives my life purpose. Melissa thought about that, about turning pain into purpose, trauma into strength. Maybe someday I can do that too. Maybe, Evelyn said, but for now, just focus on surviving. That's enough. Melissa was discharged 3 days after the blizzard. The hospital wanted to keep her longer, but she couldn't stand being there anymore. Every noise made her jump. Every strange face made her panic. She needed to feel safe. And a hospital wasn't safe. Evelyn's apartment was. It was a second-floor unit in a quiet building. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, living room with lots of natural light. And most importantly, a security system with cameras covering every entrance. The code is your birthday, Evelyn said as she showed them around. I programmed it this morning. Grace explored the bedrooms. Melissa stood in the living room, looking around at this space that would be her home, her refuge. It's perfect, she said. Thank you. You're welcome, and before you ask, no, you're not paying rent. This is part of what I do. Melissa wanted to protest, but she had no money, no job, no way to pay for anything. I'll find a way to repay you. Survive, testify, rebuild your life. That's all the repayment I need. Over the next few days, they settled into a routine. Grace cooked, Melissa rested. Evelyn visited daily with updates from Teresa. Kyle had been rearrested for violating the protective order, held without bail this time. The trial date was set for 3 months away. Teresa also brought divorce papers. These are expedited. Given the circumstances, the judge is fast-tracking everything. You could be legally divorced in 60 days. 60 days, 2 months, and 4 years of marriage would be over. Melissa signed the papers without hesitation. She also started therapy. Dr. Rebecca Shaw came to the apartment, a trauma specialist who worked with Evelyn's foundation. The first session was brutal. Dr. Shaw asked her to tell the whole story, beginning to end, every detail of the 4 years with Kyle. By the end, Melissa was emotionally exhausted. The hardest part isn't admitting he's a monster, Melissa said. The hardest part is admitting I knew something was wrong and stayed anyway. That I believed him when he said he loved me. That I thought I could fix him. That I thought it was my fault. None of it was your fault, Dr. Shaw said firmly. What Kyle did to you is called coercive control. It's systematic, deliberate. Abusers study their victims. They learn how to manipulate, how to isolate, how to destroy self-esteem so thoroughly that leaving feels impossible. But I'm educated, smart. How did I fall for it? Intelligence has nothing to do with vulnerability to abuse. In fact, abusers often target intelligent women because intelligent women make better victims. They blame themselves more. They try harder to fix things. They believe if they could just be better, the abuse would stop. The words hit hard. Melissa had spent 4 years trying to be better, trying to not make Kyle angry, walking on eggshells, monitoring his moods, anticipating his needs. All of it had been part of the trap. How do I move past this? Melissa asked. One day at a time, one small victory at a time. You've already taken the biggest step. You survived. Now you build on that. After Dr. Shaw left, Melissa sat in the new nursery Grace had started setting up. Pale yellow walls, white crib donated by Evelyn's foundation, tiny clothes washed and folded, a room for a baby who would never know the father who tried to kill them both. Was that good or bad? Melissa couldn't decide. Grace found her there, sitting in the rocking chair, hands on her belly. Penny, for your thoughts? I'm thinking about how to explain this to the baby someday. How do you tell your child that their father tried to murder you both? Grace sat on the floor beside the chair. You tell them the truth, age appropriate, when they're ready, but you also tell them that they're loved, that they're safe, that they have a mother who would die for them, and a grandmother who will spoil them rotten. Melissa smiled despite the tears. You're going to be a great grandmother. And you're going to be an amazing mother. I know it. 1 week after moving into the safe house, Evelyn invited them over for dinner. Her real house, not the apartment. Melissa and Grace drove across town. The address led to a gate. Evelyn buzzed them in. The driveway wound through trees. And then the house appeared, more like a mansion, modern, glass, stunning. Holy shit, Grace breathed. Melissa couldn't speak. This was where Evelyn lived? Evelyn met them at the door. Come in, I made lasagna. The interior was beautiful but not ostentatious, comfortable, lived in, photos on the walls, books on shelves, a home, not a showpiece. Over dinner, Melissa finally asked the question she'd been holding. How did you afford all this? I know you said you were a doctor, but this seems like more than doctor money. Evelyn set down her fork. You're right, I wasn't entirely honest with you. I'm sorry for that. I value my privacy, but you deserve the truth. She took a breath. My late husband, Richard Thorne, founded a biotech company called Neuralgen. We developed treatments for neurological disorders. It was successful, very successful. We sold the company 8 years ago for $2.3 billion. The number hung in the air, 2.3 billion. With a B, Melissa's mouth fell open. You're a billionaire? I am, though I try not to advertise that fact. Why not? Most people would. Because money changes how people see you. They stop seeing a person. They see dollar signs, opportunity, something to take from. Evelyn paused. After Richard died and we lost Sarah, I wanted to disappear, live quietly, do good without the spotlight. So you help women escape abuse? I do, through the Thorne Foundation. We provide housing, legal services, therapy, job training, everything needed to start over. We help about 50 women per year. You're one of them. Melissa felt overwhelmed. This woman, this billionaire philanthropist, had personally saved her life, was personally helping her rebuild. Why me, Melissa asked. You could have called 911 and left it at that. Why get so involved? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Because I couldn't save Sarah. I had all this money, all these resources, and I couldn't save my own daughter. She wouldn't leave her boyfriend. By the time she was ready, it was too late. What happened? They argued about something trivial. I never even found out what. He lost his temper, strangled her, then realized what he'd done and shot himself. Evelyn's voice was steady, but the pain was evident. She was 26 years old, had her whole life ahead of her, and he took it, because he couldn't control his rage, because he believed he owned her. Grace reached across the table, took Evelyn's hand. I'm so sorry, Melissa said. Don't be sorry. Use it. Let Sarah's death mean something. You survived. You got out. That's what matters. Evelyn wiped her eyes. I help women like you because I couldn't help her. It won't bring her back, but it gives her death purpose, and it gives my life meaning. They sat in silence for a moment, 3 women connected by trauma, by survival, by hope. Thank you, Melissa said finally, for everything, for saving my life, for giving me a place to live, for caring when you didn't have to. I did have to, Evelyn said softly, Because someone has to care. Someone has to fight for women who can't fight for themselves yet. That's what we do. We fight. After dinner, Evelyn showed them around. The house was stunning. Pool, garden, library. But one room made Melissa stop. A bedroom, decorated for a young woman, frozen in time. Everything neat, preserved, untouched. This was Sarah's room, Evelyn said from the doorway. I haven't changed anything. I know I should. Move on, but I can't quite let go. Melissa looked at the photos on the dresser. A beautiful young woman with dark hair and her mother's eyes, smiling, alive, unaware of what was coming. She looks happy here. She was. This was before she met him, before everything changed. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. She always wanted to help people too. That's how she ended up with him. She thought she could save him from his demons. Instead, he dragged her down with him. Melissa understood that impulse. The belief that love could fix anything. That if she just tried hard enough, was good enough, Kyle would change. But people didn't change, not fundamentally, not when their core was rotten. They left Sarah's room, walked back downstairs. Grace and Evelyn talked about logistics, court dates, therapy schedules. Melissa only half listened. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. She glanced at it without thinking, then froze. The headline read, "Local man arrested for attempted murder of pregnant wife gets bail reduced." No, 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 no. Kyle made bail, Melissa said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. He's out again. Evelyn grabbed the phone, read the article. Her face went hard. His lawyer argued hardship, said he needed to be out to run his business. The judge agreed, reduced bail to $50,000. He posted it an hour ago. Grace stood up. We're calling Detective Webb. Now. But before anyone could move, Melissa's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, regretted it immediately. Kyle's voice, smooth, calm, terrifying. Hello, sweetheart. Miss me? Melissa hung up immediately, hands shaking so badly she dropped the phone. Evelyn picked it up. Block number. We can't trace it, but we're reporting this. Grace was already on her cell, calling Detective Webb, her voice sharp and angry, demanding to know how Kyle had gotten bail again. Melissa couldn't breathe. The panic attack hit hard, chest tight, vision narrowing, room spinning. She stumbled to the bathroom. Made it just in time before she vomited. Grace found her on the floor, held her hair back, rubbed her back. Breathe, honey. In through your nose, out through your mouth. You're okay, you're safe. But Melissa didn't feel safe. Kyle was out there, calling her, hunting her. Detective Webb arrived within 30 minutes, took the phone. Examined the call log. Burner phone untraceable. But it's another violation of the protective order. I'll have him back in custody by morning. You said that last time, Melissa said. Her voice was hollow. And he got out again. This time is different. This is his second violation. No judge will grant bail twice. You promise? Detective Webb met her eyes. I promise. He's going back in, and he's staying in until trial. After he left, Melissa couldn't stop shaking. Grace and Evelyn tried to comfort her, but the fear had taken hold. What if he finds me? What if he gets in? What if he finishes what he started? He won't, Evelyn said firmly. The security system is top-notch. The doors are reinforced steel. The windows have laminated glass. He can't get in without triggering alarms that automatically call the police. But what if, no what ifs, you're safe. I promise that you're safe. Yes, if. But Melissa didn't believe that. She thought she was safe in her own home. And Kyle had nearly killed her there. They returned to the safe house. Evelyn insisted on staying the night. She sat up on the couch. Grace took the second bedroom. Melissa tried to sleep in the master, but every sound was Kyle. Every creak of the building was him breaking in. Every car passing on the street was him circling, watching, waiting. At 3 in the morning, Melissa gave up on sleep, went to the kitchen, started cleaning, first the counters, then the stove, then inside the cabinets, pulling everything out, wiping shelves, organizing by swims and type. She needed control. Over something, anything. When you couldn't control whether you'd survive, you controlled what you could. Grace found her at 4:30, surrounded by food containers, labels facing forward, spices alphabetized, drawer dividers perfectly aligned. Grace didn't say anything, just sat on the floor beside her, held her while she cried. "I can't do this," Melissa sobbed. "I can't live like this." Always afraid, always looking over my shoulder. This isn't living. It's just surviving. Right now, surviving is enough. Later, you'll learn to live again. When? When does it get better? I don't know, honey, but it will. I promise it will. Detective Webb called at 8 in the morning. Kyle had been arrested at his girlfriend Rachel's apartment, held without bail. The judge had been furious at the second violation. "He's staying locked up until trial," Detective Webb said, "and the trial is fast-tracked. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Melissa would be 8.5 months pregnant by then. Maybe the baby would even be born by then. The thought of giving birth while Kyle was still legally her husband made her sick. Teresa called an hour later with better news. Divorce is finalized. A judge signed off this morning given the circumstances. You're no longer married to Kyle Harrison. The relief was overwhelming. Melissa burst into tears. Happy tears this time. I'm free? You're free, legally divorced. And the protective order is permanent. He can never contact you again. Never. The word felt impossibly good. Over the next few weeks, Melissa started to reclaim her life. Small steps, small victories. She cut her hair. Kyle had made her keep it long, down to her waist. She cut it to her shoulders. Felt like she was cutting away 4 years of control. She got her old email address back, the one Kyle had made her delete, reconnected with her college roommate, her former teaching colleagues, people she'd lost touch with. She went grocery shopping alone for the first time in 4 years. Grace offered to come. Melissa said no. She walked the aisles slowly, picked up items she liked. Spicy salsa. Kyle had hated spicy food. Dark chocolate. Kyle said it was too expensive. Fresh flowers. Kyle said they had just die anyway. At checkout, the cashier smiled. "Have a nice day." And Melissa realized she actually might have a nice day. Revolutionary. She attended therapy twice a week, worked through the trauma, the guilt, the shame, the fear. Dr. Shaw introduced her to other survivors, women who'd escaped, who'd rebuilt, who'd thrived. One woman, Emma, was 24. 2 kids. Husband had escalated from verbal to physical abuse. Evelyn's foundation had helped her escape. Emma hugged Melissa when they met. "Your story gave me courage. If you could survive being tied outside in a blizzard, I could survive leaving." Melissa hadn't thought of her survival as courage, but maybe it was. The baby grew. Melissa felt kicks every day, strong, healthy, fighting to be born. She still hadn't picked a name, kept waiting for the right one to appear. Grace suggested names every day. "What about Rose or Lily or Grace Jr.?" Melissa smiled, but nothing felt right yet. Evelyn offered her a job. The foundation needs an outreach coordinator, someone who's been through it, who can talk to women considering leaving. Help them understand it's possible. "I don't have any qualifications." "You have the most important qualification. You survived." That's what they need to hear. Melissa accepted. The salary was modest but enough. Insurance included. Flexible hours for when the baby came. Her first day, she met with a woman named Jennifer. 32, married 10 years, 3 kids. Husband broke her arm last week. She was considering leaving but terrified. Melissa sat across from her, took her hands. "I know you're scared. I was terrified. But you can do this. You can survive this. And on the other side, there's a life you can't even imagine yet. A life that's yours, where you make the decisions, where you're not afraid." Jennifer cried, "What if I can't? What if he finds me?" "Then we'll protect you. That's what we do here. We fight for women who can't fight for themselves yet." Jennifer left with pamphlets, a burner phone, and hope. Melissa went home feeling like she'd done something important, something meaningful. Maybe Evelyn was right. Maybe turning pain into purpose was the answer. At her next therapy session, Dr. Shaw asked how she was feeling. "Better, not healed, but better. I'm angry now instead of scared. That feels like progress." Anger is a healthy response to what happened to you. It means you're recognizing the injustice, not blaming yourself anymore. I still have nightmares. You will for a while. Trauma doesn't heal on a timeline, but you're doing the work. That's what matters. Melissa left therapy feeling lighter. The anger was clean, pure, righteous. Kyle had tried to kill her, and she'd survived. And now she was going to make sure he paid for what he'd done. The trial was coming, and Melissa was ready. The trial started on a Tuesday in late spring. Melissa was 35 weeks pregnant. The baby could come any day. Dr. Mitchell had warned her that stress could trigger labor. But Melissa insisted on being there, on testifying, on facing Kyle one more time. The courtroom was smaller than she'd imagined. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench, jury box, 2 tables for attorneys. Kyle sat at the defense table, wearing a suit, haircut, clean-shaven, looking nothing like the monster who tied her outside to die. He looked like a normal man, respectable, harmless. That's what made him so dangerous. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Kyle smiled, small, private, a smile that said, "You're still mine." Melissa looked away, focused on Grace beside her, Evelyn in the row behind, Teresa at the prosecution table with Assistant District Attorney Janet Rodriguez. The jury filed in, 12 people who would decide Kyle's fate, 8 women, 4 men, various ages, all looking serious. Judge Morrison called the court to order. The state versus Kyle Harrison. Charges of attempted murder in the first degree, fraud, forgery, and coercive control. The opening statements began. Janet Rodriguez stood, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about a man who decided his pregnant wife was worth more dead than alive. Kyle Harrison took out a life insurance policy for $800,000 on his wife Melissa, named his girlfriend as beneficiary, then tied his pregnant wife outside in a blizzard, minus 25 degrees, for hours, hoping she would freeze to death so he could collect the money and start a new life. She paused. Let that sink in. The evidence will show this was premeditated, calculated, cold-blooded attempted murder. And if not for a neighbor who happened to look out her window at the right moment, Melissa Harrison and her unborn baby would both be dead. Kyle's attorney stood. Marcus Bennett, expensive suit, slicked back hair. My client admits he made a terrible mistake. He was drunk, angry, he lost his temper. He regrets his actions deeply. But this was not attempted murder. This was a domestic dispute that got out of hand, a moment of poor judgment, not a calculated plan to kill. Melissa felt rage building. Lost his temper? Poor judgment. He'd researched hypothermia, bought rope, changed the life insurance beneficiary, planned every detail. The first witness was Dr. Amanda Mitchell. She testified about Melissa's injuries, the severe frostbite, the hypothermia, the bruising on her pregnant belly. In my medical opinion, had Ms. Harrison been outside for another hour, she and the baby would both have died. Kyle's attorney cross-examined. Isn't it possible she went outside willingly? Perhaps she was confused, disoriented? No, the rope burns on her wrists indicate she was forcibly restrained. You don't tie yourself up. The next witness was Detective Marcus Webb. He walked the jury through the evidence. The text messages to Rachel, the life insurance policy, the internet search history. Mr. Harrison's search for how long to freeze to death, hypothermia death timeline, and do restraints show after freezing. These searches occurred in the week leading up to the incident. The jury looked shocked. Several took notes. Kyle's attorney tried to discredit the evidence. Couldn't these searches have been for research? Perhaps he was writing a story or watching a documentary. He's a construction supervisor, not a writer, and these searches were followed by purchases of rope at a hardware store 3 weeks before the incident, the same rope used to restrain his wife. On the second Barani, Rachel Foster testified. Kyle's girlfriend. She was younger than Melissa, 25, pretty, tearful. I had no idea he was still married, Rachel said. He told me he was divorced, that his ex-wife was crazy, had a restraining order against him. I believed him. And what did he tell you about the night of the incident? Janet asked. He texted me that night, said he'd be free soon, that it was all going to be over. I thought he meant some legal issue with his ex. I didn't know, she broke down crying. I didn't know he meant he was going to kill her. Kyle's attorney tried to paint Rachel as a scorned woman, lying to save herself. But the text messages were clear, undeniable. On the third day, Melissa took the stand. She wore a simple dress, no makeup, let the jury see her as she was. Pregnant, tired, scared, human. Janet Rodriguez started with basic questions: how they'd met, when they'd married, when things had changed. Then they got to the hard parts. Tell the jury about the night of February 14th. Melissa took a breath. I got a phone call from my mother. Kyle didn't allow contact with her, but I answered without thinking. He overheard, got angry, very angry. What happened next? He hit me, multiple times, pushed me against the counter. I fell, put my hands over my belly to protect the baby. What did he say? He said maybe the cold would cool me off, help me think about what I'd done. What did you think he meant? I thought he meant put me outside for a few minutes, but then he got rope from the garage, tied my hands behind my back, my ankles together, attached me to the porch railing, and left me there. For how long? Hours. I don't know exactly. It was sunset when he put me out. After midnight when Dr. Thorne found me. Did you call for help? I tried, but the storm was too loud, and I was losing consciousness. I thought I was going to die. I told my baby I was sorry, that I loved them, that I'd failed them. Melissa's voice broke. The tears came. Real, raw. The jury watched with sympathy. No further questions, Janet said softly. Then it was Kyle's attorney's turn. Marcus Bennett stood, approached the witness stand. Ms. Harrison, you claim my client tied you outside. But isn't it true you've lied about him before? Told people he was abusive when he was simply trying to protect you? No, he was abusive for 4 years. And yet you stayed. Why would someone stay with an abuser unless they were lying about the abuse? The question was designed to shame her. Melissa felt it, but she also felt the anger. I stayed because I was afraid, because he controlled all the money, because he isolated me from everyone, because leaving seemed more dangerous than staying. Until the night he tried to kill me. Then staying wasn't an option anymore. You're asking this jury to believe my client, a respected member of the community, would try to murder his pregnant wife in a blizzard. Does that sound reasonable to you? Your client researched how long it takes to freeze to death. He bought rope weeks in advance. He doubled my life insurance and changed the beneficiary to his girlfriend. He texted her about being finally free while I was dying outside. Yes, I believe he tried to murder me. Because he did. Melissa's voice was steel. No wavering, no doubt. Marcus Bennett tried a few more questions, but Melissa didn't break, didn't falter. Finally, he gave up. No further questions. As Melissa stepped down from the witness stand, she looked at Kyle. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked angry, trapped. Good. Evelyn Thorne testified next. Described finding Melissa, the condition she was in, the fear in her eyes. She was dying, Evelyn said simply. Another hour and she'd be dead. More witnesses followed. Neighbors who'd heard screaming. Kyle's co-workers who'd heard him brag about keeping his wife in line. Medical experts who explained how hypothermia kills. On the fourth day Kyle took the stand, his attorney had probably advised against it, but Kyle's narcissism wouldn't allow him to stay silent. He needed to tell his version, to control the narrative. It was a mistake. Under friendly questioning from his attorney, Kyle was calm, apologetic. I made a terrible mistake. I'd been drinking. We argued. I lost my temper. I never meant for her to be out there that long. How long did you intend for her to be outside? Just a few minutes, to cool off. Then I went for a drive to calm down. When I came back, she was gone. I panicked, started looking for her. That's when I saw the ambulance. It was a good story, almost believable. Then Janet Rodriguez cross-examined. Mr. Harrison, you claim you only meant for your wife to be outside a few minutes, but you tied her with rope, so she wouldn't wander off. It was a blizzard. She could get lost. So you were protecting her by tying her outside in a deadly blizzard? I wasn't thinking clearly. Let's talk about your thinking. You searched online for information about hypothermia death. Why? I don't remember that. You don't remember searching how long to freeze to death 3 days before you tied your pregnant wife outside in minus 25-degree weather? Kyle's face reddened. I was curious. I'd seen something on TV. What show? I don't remember. You don't remember a lot of things, but you do remember your girlfriend Rachel, the woman you named as beneficiary on your wife's life insurance policy. The woman you texted about being finally free while your wife was dying outside. That was taken out of context. Really? What context would make finally free and weather's perfect and tragic but believable acceptable messages to send your mistress while your pregnant wife is tied outside in a blizzard? Kyle had no answer, his jaw clenched, his hands gripped the witness stand. You planned this, didn't you? You wanted Melissa dead. You wanted the insurance money. You wanted to start a new life with Rachel. And you thought you'd get away with it. No, that's not true. Then why did you book a one-way ticket to Mexico, leaving the morning after you left Melissa to die? The courtroom gasped. This was new information. Even Melissa hadn't known about the plane ticket. Kyle's face went white, then red, then purple. I needed a vacation, that's all. A vacation, with your wife dead and $800,000 in insurance money. How convenient. You're twisting everything. I'm presenting the facts. You're the one who twisted them into a plan to murder your wife. Janet leaned forward. Isn't it true that on the night of February 14th, you tied your pregnant wife outside, left her there to die, went to your girlfriend's apartment to establish an alibi, then returned home intending to discover her body, call 911, play the grieving husband, collect the insurance, and disappear to Mexico? Kyle exploded. She was my wife, my property. She had no right to disobey me. No right to spy to her mother after I told her not to. She needed to learn. The courtroom went silent. Kyle's attorney looked like he wanted to disappear. The jury looked horrified. Kyle realized what he'd said, tried to backtrack. I didn't mean no further questions, Janet said. She'd gotten exactly what she needed. Kyle's mask had slipped. The jury had seen the real man underneath. The trial continued. Closing arguments, both sides summarizing their cases. Then the jury deliberated. 6 hours. Melissa sat in a private room with Grace and Evelyn, unable to eat, unable to think, just waiting. Finally, the bailiff called them back. The jury had reached a verdict. Melissa walked into the courtroom, sat behind the prosecution table, held Grace's hand. The foreperson stood, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty, the word echoed. Melissa felt like she could breathe for the first time in weeks. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of forgery, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of coercive control, we find the defendant guilty. Guilty on all counts. Kyle's face crumpled. He looked at Melissa, mouthed something. She didn't try to understand it. Judge Morrison set sentencing for 2 weeks later. As they left the courtroom, Melissa felt a sharp pain, low in her belly, radiating around to her back. She grabbed Grace's arm. Mom, I think the baby's coming. The contractions were 5 minutes apart by the time they reached the hospital. Grace drove. Evelyn sat in back with Melissa, timing contractions on her phone, offering calm reassurance. Breathe through them, in through your nose, out through your mouth. This is too early, Melissa gasped. I'm only 35 weeks. The baby isn't ready. 35 weeks is viable. Baby will be fine. But Melissa was terrified. After everything, was she going to lose the baby now? At the finish line? They pulled into the emergency bay. Nurses rushed out with a wheelchair, wheeled Melissa straight to labor and delivery. Dr. Mitchell was there, on shift. Welcome back, she said with a small smile. Looks like someone wants to meet you. They got Melissa into a gown, hooked up to monitors. The baby's heartbeat filled the room. Strong, fast, Healthy. Baby's doing great, Dr. Mitchell said. And you're at 6 centimeters. This is happening fast. Grace held one hand, Evelyn held the other, and Melissa focused on breathing through the contractions. Each wave of pain was different from the pain Kyle had caused. This pain had purpose, was bringing life instead of death. The hours blurred, contractions intensified. Melissa breathed, pushed when told to push, screamed when she needed to. Grace wiped her forehead with a cool cloth. You're doing great, honey, so strong. I'm so proud of you. Evelyn just held her hand, a steady presence. The woman who'd saved her life, now witnessing new life. Finally, at 2:43 in the morning, the baby came. A piercing cry filled the room. The most beautiful sound Melissa had ever heard. It's a girl, Dr. Mitchell announced. She placed the baby on Melissa's chest. 7 pounds, 6 ounces. Perfect. Melissa looked down at her daughter, tiny, red, furious at being born, but perfect, absolutely perfect. Hello, Melissa whispered. I'm your mom. I've been waiting to meet you. The baby stopped crying, opened her eyes, dark blue, unfocused, but looking right at Melissa. What's her name? Grace asked. Melissa had thought about this, had known for weeks but hadn't said it out loud. Hope. Her name is Hope Evelyn Sullivan. Evelyn gasped, tears streaming down her face. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You saved both our lives. She wouldn't be here without you. Grace was crying too. Hope Evelyn. It's perfect. They cleaned the baby, did all the newborn checks, 8 and 9 on the APGARs. Healthy, strong, no complications from being 5 weeks early. Melissa held Hope, counted fingers and toes, marveled at how something so tiny could be so perfect. You're safe now, she whispered. No one's going to hurt you, I promise. I'm going to protect you. Always. The next few days were a blur of feeding and sleeping and learning to be a mother. Grace stayed at the hospital, slept in the chair, helped with everything. Evelyn visited daily, brought flowers, baby clothes, books about parenting. Detective Webb stopped by with news. Kyle's sentencing had been scheduled. 25 years, eligible for parole in 18. His parental rights are automatically terminated due to the felony conviction, Detective Webb said. He has no legal claim to Hope. He can never contact either of you. Never. Never. You're free of him. Completely. Free. The word felt impossibly good. On day 3, Teresa Morrison visited with papers. Divorce is finalized. Name changes approved. You're officially Melissa Sullivan again. And Hope's birth certificate lists you as the sole parent. Melissa signed the papers, each signature erasing Kyle from their lives. They discharged Melissa and Hope on day 4. Drove back to the safe house. Grace had transformed it. Balloons, flowers, a hand-painted welcome home sign. Hope's nursery was complete. Crib, changing table, rocking chair, everything a baby needed. Melissa sat in the rocking chair, held Hope, looked around at this room that was theirs, this life that was theirs, this future that Kyle couldn't touch. We did it, she whispered to Hope. We survived. And now we're going to thrive. The first weeks of motherhood were exhausting. Hope woke every 2 hours. Melissa was constantly tired. Her body ached from childbirth. The frostbite scars on her fingers and toes still hurt. But she was happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in 4 years. Grace was an incredible grandmother, patient, knowledgeable. She taught Melissa everything: how to swaddle, how to burp, how to tell the difference between a hungry cry and a tired cry. You're a natural, Grace said one morning. Look at you. You've got this. Melissa didn't feel like she had anything, but she was trying, and apparently that was enough. Evelyn visited regularly, brought meals, sat quietly in the nursery while Melissa fed Hope, a presence that asked for nothing and gave everything. You remind me of Sarah, Evelyn said one day, the way you are with Hope, so protective, so fierce. Sarah would have been a wonderful mother. Tell me about her, Melissa said. So Evelyn did. Told stories about Sarah as a child, curious, adventurous, fearless, about Sarah as a teenager, rebellious but kind, about Sarah as a young woman, beautiful, smart, in love with the wrong person. I tried to warn her, Evelyn said. Saw the signs. The isolation, the control. But she thought she could fix him, save him. By the time she realized she couldn't, it was too late. I'm sorry you lost her. Me too, but helping you, helping Hope, it keeps her memory alive. Makes her death mean something. 6 weeks after Hope was born, Melissa returned to work at the Thorn Foundation. Part-time, Grace watched Hope 3 days a week. Melissa's job was to talk to women considering leaving, share her story, offer hope. The first woman she met with was named Jennifer. The one she'd spoken to before Hope was born, Jennifer had left, was living in a safe house, starting over. You gave me courage, Jennifer said. If you could survive being tied outside in a blizzard, I could survive leaving. How are you doing? It's hard, really hard. I miss my old life, my house, the routine, even some parts of my husband. The good parts before it went bad. That's normal, Melissa said. I missed parts of Kyle too. The man I thought I married, the life I thought we'd have. But none of that was real. It was a mask. The real person was the one who hurt us. Do you still have nightmares? Sometimes, less now. Therapy helps, and time, in building a new life. Melissa paused. It gets better. Not quickly, but gradually. One day you'll realize you went a whole hour without thinking about him, then a day, then a week. When did that happen for you? Last Tuesday. I was feeding my daughter, and I realized I hadn't thought about Kyle once that day. It felt like winning the lottery. Jennifer smiled. I can't wait for that day. Over the next few months, Melissa found her rhythm. Work, motherhood, therapy, slowly rebuilding a life that was hers. She helped 15 women leave abusive situations. Each one felt like a small victory, a way of honoring her own survival. Hope grew, started smiling, laughing, rolling over. Each milestone was a celebration. Grace moved into a small apartment nearby, close enough to help, far enough to give Melissa space. Evelyn became like family, not just a benefactor, a friend, a second mother. Melissa still had bad days, days when the trauma felt fresh, when she'd see someone who looked like Kyle in panic, when the nightmares came back. But the good days started to outnumber the bad. One afternoon, 6 months after Kyle's conviction, Melissa received a letter, prison postmark. Her stomach dropped. It was from Kyle. She held the envelope, stared at his handwriting. Her hands shook. Grace found her in the kitchen. What is that? Letter from Kyle. Are you going to read it? Melissa thought about it. Part of her was curious. What did he have to say? Apology? Blame? Manipulation? But then she looked at Hope and her bouncer, laughing at a mobile, happy, safe, free. No, Melissa said. I don't need his words. I don't need closure from him. I already have everything I need. She tore the letter in half, then in half again, threw it in the trash. That chapter was over. 1 year after the coldest night, Melissa stood in front of a mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked stronger, healthier. Her hair was still short. She'd kept it that way. A reminder that she made her own choices now. The scars on her fingers from the frostbite were permanent, small, white, almost invisible. But she knew they were there, proof of what she'd survived. Hope was walking now, 14 months old, tottering around on chubby legs, laughing at everything. A happy baby who'd never known fear. Today was special. Melissa was speaking at a community center. Domestic Violence Awareness Month. She'd been asked to share her story publicly for the first time. Grace helped her get ready. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I'm ready. Other women need to hear that survival is possible. The community center was packed. 200 people. Survivors. Advocates. Community members. Press. Melissa walked onto the small stage, stood behind a microphone, looked out at the audience. For a moment, the fear threatened to choke her. Kyle's voice in her head. You're worthless. Stupid. No one wants to hear what you have to say. But then she saw Evelyn in the front row, Grace beside her, holding Hope, and she found her voice. My name is Melissa Sullivan. 1 year ago, my husband tried to kill me. He tied me outside in a blizzard, minus 25 degrees. I was 7 months pregnant. He left me there to die. The room was silent, everyone listening. I survived, but only because a neighbor I barely knew looked out her window at exactly the right moment. She saved my life, and then she helped me rebuild it. Melissa told the whole story. The 4 years of abuse, the isolation, the control, the night that almost killed her, the trial, the birth of her daughter. I'm not going to tell you it was easy. I'm not going to say I'm completely healed. Trauma doesn't heal on a timeline. Some days I still have nightmares. Some days I still jump at loud noises. Some days I still feel the ghost of that rope on my wrists. She paused. Let that truth settle. But most days are good now. Really good. I have a daughter I love more than life itself. I have my mother back. I have a job that gives me purpose. I have a future that belongs to me. Melissa's voice grew stronger. If you're in an abusive situation right now, please hear me. You can survive this. You deserve to survive this. It won't be easy. It will be the hardest thing you ever do. But on the other side of that fear is a life you can't even imagine yet. A life that's yours, where you make the decisions, where you're not afraid. She saw women in the audience crying, nodding, recognizing themselves in her story. 1 year ago, I was dying in the snow. Today, I'm standing here, strong, free, happy. If I can do it, you can too. You're not alone. There are people who will help. Organizations like the Thorn Foundation, friends, family, strangers who become family. Melissa took a breath, delivered her final message. People always asked me when I knew I had to leave. It took me a long time to understand this. I'd always known. The question was never about knowledge. It was about believing I deserved to survive, about believing I was worth saving. Her voice broke slightly, but she pushed through. I learned something on the coldest night of my life. I learned that the prison door had been unlocked all along. I'd been my own warden. But surviving that night taught me I'm stronger than I knew, stronger than anything winter can throw at me. And now I hold the keys to my own life, and I'm never, ever giving them to anyone else again. Standing ovation, the entire room on its feet, applause thundering. Melissa stepped away from the microphone, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears. Afterward, 3 women approached her, each one ready to leave their abuser, asking for help, for resources, for hope. Melissa gave them all 3. She drove home through light snow, the first snow of the season, fat flakes catching on the windshield. A year ago, snow had meant death. Now it was just weather, just winter, beautiful in its own way. Grace was watching Hope for the evening. Melissa had the apartment to herself for a few hours. A rare luxury. She made tea, sat in the rocking chair in Hope's room, looked at the pictures on the walls. Hope's first smile, first laugh, first time sitting up. Every milestone documented. A life untouched by Kyle. A childhood that would be safe, loved, normal. Melissa's phone buzzed on, a text from Daniel, the foundation board member who'd been interested in her since they'd met 6 months ago. Saw your speech online. You were incredible. Coffee sometime? Daniel was kind, patient, respectful. He'd asked her out twice. Both times she'd said she wasn't ready. And she wasn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that was okay. She didn't need a man to complete her. She was whole on her own. But maybe someday, when Hope was older, when the trauma was further behind her, maybe then she'd be ready to trust again. Or maybe not. And that was fine too. The next morning, Melissa took Hope to the park, pushed her on the baby swings, watched her laugh and reach for birds. A woman approached, mid-30s, nervous. Excuse me, are you Melissa Sullivan? I saw your speech last night. I am. I just wanted to say thank you. I've been trying to leave my husband for 3 years. Last night I finally got the courage. I left this morning. I'm staying with my sister. I called the Thorn Foundation. They're going to help me. Melissa felt her throat tighten. I'm so proud of you. That's the hardest step. You made it seem possible. If you could survive what you did, I could walk out my front door. And they talked for 20 minutes. Melissa gave her contact information, promised to check in, to help however she could. As the woman left, Melissa felt it, the purpose, the meaning. She couldn't save Sarah, but she could save others, one woman at a time. That evening, Evelyn came for dinner. A weekly tradition now. Grace cooked. Evelyn brought wine. They ate together. A chosen family forged in crisis. "How are you really doing?" Evelyn asked after Hope was asleep. "I'm good, truly good. Some days are still hard, but most are great." Melissa paused. "Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for giving me a place to live, for being here. I wouldn't have survived without you." "Yes, you would have. You're stronger than you know." "Maybe, but I didn't have to do it alone. That made all the difference." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from shared trauma, shared survival. "Sarah would have liked you," Evelyn said softly. "She always wanted to help people too. She would have been glad her death led to something good, to the foundation, to helping women like you. Her death wasn't meaningless. It saved lives, mine included." Later, after everyone left, Melissa did her nightly routine. Checked all the locks, armed the security system, looked in on Hope one more time. Her daughter slept peacefully. No fear, no trauma, just the innocent sleep of a loved child. Melissa kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, baby girl. Mommy's here. Always." She went to her own room, got ready for bed, looked at herself in the mirror one more time. The woman looking back wasn't the same woman who'd been tied outside in a blizzard. That woman had been broken, scared, trapped. This woman was whole, strong, free. The journey wasn't over. Healing wasn't linear. There would be setbacks, hard days, moments when the past felt too close. But she would survive those too, because survival was what she did best. Melissa turned off the light, climbed into bed, and for the first time in years, she fell asleep without fear. 18 months after the coldest night, Melissa bought a house. Nothing fancy, a small 2-bedroom in a safe neighborhood, but it was hers, her name on the deed, her money for the down payment, her choice. Grace cried when she saw it. "My baby girl, a homeowner." "I know, I can barely believe it myself." The house needed work, painting, new floors, updated kitchen. But Melissa liked that. She wanted to put her mark on it, make it theirs. She and Grace spent weekends fixing it up. Hope helped by making messes and laughing at everything. Evelyn sent painters, contractors, offered to pay for renovations. Melissa refused. "I need to do this myself. I need to know I can." "Stubborn," Evelyn said with affection. "I learned from the best." They moved in on a Saturday in early fall. Boxes everywhere, furniture that didn't match, but it felt like home. That night, after Hope was asleep in her new room, Melissa sat on her own front porch, drinking tea, watching the street. This porch was different from the one where she'd almost died. This porch was safe, peaceful, hers. A car pulled up. Daniel got out, carrying flowers and a bottle of wine. "Housewarming gift," he said. "I hope it's okay I stopped by." It's okay. They'd been seeing each other casually for 3 months. Coffee, lunch, long walks in the park with Hope. Nothing rushed, nothing pressured. Daniel was patient, kind. He never pushed, never demanded, just offered companionship. "The house looks great," he said, looking around the still empty living room. "It's a work in progress." "Aren't we all?" They talked for hours, about everything and nothing. Melissa told him more about her past, about Kyle, about the trial, about the therapy that was ongoing. "I still have nightmares sometimes," she admitted. "I still panic at loud noises. I still check every lock 3 times before bed." "That's normal, after what you went through." "Does it bother you that I'm damaged?" "You're not damaged. You're healing. There's a difference, Versbaum." Daniel paused. "And no, it doesn't bother me. If anything, it makes me admire you more. You survived something terrible, and you're building something beautiful from the ashes. That takes incredible strength." Melissa felt something loosen in her chest. Hope. Not for a relationship necessarily, but for the possibility of one. Someday, when she was ready. "Thank you," she said, "for being patient, for not pushing. I'll wait as long as you need. And if you decide you don't want this, that's okay too. Your healing comes first." always. After he left, Melissa thought about that, about a man who respected her boundaries, who didn't try to control, who saw her as a person, not property. Maybe someday she'd be ready for more, but for now, this was enough. Work at the foundation was thriving. Melissa had been promoted to Director of Outreach. She managed a team of 3, helped coordinate services for 75 women per year. Each woman was a story, a survival, a new beginning. Some women left and never looked back. Some went back to their abusers. Some left multiple times before it stuck. Melissa never judged. She remembered how hard it had been, how many times she'd wanted to believe Kyle would change, how terrified she'd been to leave. It took me 4 years and nearly dying to leave, she'd tell them. However long it takes you is okay. I'll be here whenever you're ready. Hope turned 2, a birthday party in their new backyard. Grace, Evelyn, Daniel. Women from the foundation. A celebration of life and survival and joy. Hope toddled around in a princess dress, smashing cake into her face, laughing constantly. She would never remember Kyle, would never know the father who tried to kill her. Melissa had decided she'd tell Hope the truth someday, age appropriate, when she was ready. But for now, Hope just knew she was loved. By her mother, her grandmother, her extended chosen family. That was enough. At the end of the party, as everyone was leaving, Evelyn pulled Melissa aside. I have something for you. She handed over an envelope. Inside was a document, legal, official. What is this? Sarah's trust fund. When she died, the money sat untouched. I didn't know what to do with it, but now I do. Evelyn smiled. I'm donating half to the foundation in her name. The other half is for Hope, for her education, her future, whatever she needs. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Evelyn, I can't accept this. Yes, you can. Sarah would have wanted this. She always wanted children. She would have been a wonderful mother. This way she gets to help Hope, even though they never met. How much? $2 million. In a trust. For Hope. Melissa couldn't speak. Just pulled Evelyn into a hug. 2 women who'd saved each other in different ways. That night, after everyone left, Melissa sat in Hope's room, rocking chair creaking softly, Hope asleep in her crib. She thought about where she'd been 2 years ago, trapped in a marriage that was killing her, too scared to leave, too beaten down to believe she deserved better. And now look where she was, homeowner or director at a nonprofit, mother, survivor, warrior. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, dark days, moments when giving up felt easier than continuing. But she'd kept going, one day at a time, one small victory at a time. The frostbite scars on her fingers caught her eye. White, permanent, a reminder of the coldest night. But they didn't hurt anymore. They were just scars, proof of survival. Melissa's phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. Hi, my name is Rachel, Kyle's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend. I know this is weird. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know he was married. I didn't know what he'd done. I testified at his trial, helped put him away. I just wanted you to know that and to say I'm sorry for my part in it. Melissa stared at the message. Rachel, the other woman, the one Kyle had planned to run away with. Part of her wanted to be angry, to blame. But mostly she felt sad. Rachel had been a victim too, manipulated, lied to. Melissa typed back, thank you for testifying. That took courage. I don't blame you. You didn't know. I hope you're doing okay. A moment later, I'm in therapy, working through it. Your story helped me see I was being manipulated too, just in different ways. Thank you for being brave. We're both survivors now. Take care of yourself. The conversation ended there, but Melissa felt lighter. Forgiveness wasn't for Rachel, it was for herself. Letting go of anger that no longer served her. 2 years after the coldest night, Melissa was invited to speak at a national conference on domestic violence. The event was in Washington, D.C. 3 days, 2,000 attendees, policymakers, advocates, survivors. Grace and Evelyn both came. Daniel watched Hope. Melissa's speech was on the main stage. She walked out to applause, stood behind a podium, looked out at thousands of faces. and told her story one more time, but this time she focused on the after. Not just the trauma, the recovery, the rebuilding, the joy that was possible on the other side of fear. Survival isn't just about getting out, she said. It's about building a life worth living, a life that's yours, where you make the choices, where you're not afraid. She talked about hope, about the foundation, about the women she'd helped, about turning pain into purpose. I learned something on the coldest night of my life. I learned that the prison door had been unlocked all along. I'd been my own warden. But surviving that night taught me I'm stronger than anything winter can throw at me. She paused, let the words sink in. I hold the keys to my own life now, and I'm never, ever giving them to anyone else again. That's what freedom means. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of choice. The knowledge that you're worth saving, that your life has value, that you deserve to be happy. Standing ovation. Louder than before, longer than before. Melissa stepped away from the podium, wiped her eyes, and felt the weight of the past finally lifting. She was no longer defined by what Kyle had done to her. She was defined by what she'd done for herself and for others. That evening, Melissa walked along the National Mall, the monuments lit up against the night sky, Grace and Evelyn on either side of her. I'm proud of you, Grace said. So incredibly proud. Look at what you've built from nothing. Not from nothing, from rock bottom. There's a difference, Melissa smiled. But thank you, I'm proud of me too. That's new. Snow began to fall, light, gentle. The first snow of the season. A year ago, she would have panicked. The cold would have sent her spiraling. Triggered memories of that night. Now she just tilted her face up, let the flakes land on her cheeks, felt their coldness without fear. I'm not afraid of winter anymore, she said softly. You survived the coldest night, Evelyn said. Everything after is warm by comparison. They walked in comfortable silence. Three women who'd saved each other in different ways. Three survivors building something beautiful from pain. The next day, Melissa flew home. Daniel picked her up from the airport. Hope was asleep in her car seat. How was it? Daniel asked. Amazing, terrifying, empowering, all of it. I'm glad. They drove through falling snow. Melissa looked at Hope in the mirror, her daughter, her miracle, her reason for surviving. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Still moments when the past felt too close. Still nightmares that woke her at 3 in the morning. But there were also good days, great days. Days when she laughed so hard her stomach hurt. Days when Hope said something funny. Days when she helped another woman escape. Days when she felt genuinely happy. Those days were becoming more frequent, outnumbering the hard ones. That was healing. Not the absence of pain, but the increasing presence of joy. Daniel pulled into her driveway. Her house, with its yellow door and flower boxes and porch swing. Home. Melissa carried Hope inside, tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead. Sweet dreams, baby girl. Mommy loves you more than the world. She walked through the house, checking locks, arming the security system. Old habits that would probably never fully go away, but they didn't control her anymore. They were just precautions, not a prison. Melissa stood at her bedroom window, looked out at the snow-covered street, the peaceful neighborhood, the life she'd built. She thought about Kyle, wondered if she'd ever truly stop thinking about him. Probably not. He was part of her story, the villain she'd survived, the monster she'd escaped. But he wasn't the main character anymore. She was. This was her story now, hers and Hope's, a story of survival and strength and transformation, a story that was still being written. And the next chapter? That was entirely up to her. Melissa smiled, closed the curtains, climbed into bed, and fell asleep without fear. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. She was strong enough to survive anything. Cold enough nights had already passed. Warm days were ahead. And she was finally, truly, completely free. Melissa's story didn't end on that frozen porch. It began there. And maybe that's what survival really means. Not just getting through the worst night of your life, but building something beautiful on the other side of it. If Melissa's story moved you, if it made you think, if it gave you hope, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what moment hit you hardest. Was it the coldest night, the courtroom victory, or hope's first laugh. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who needs to know that survival is possible, that freedom is real, that transformation can happen, please share this with them. You never know whose life might change because you hit that share button. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories of survival and strength and second chances, hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell so you never miss a story. Because every week I bring you real tales of ordinary people who survived extraordinary circumstances. Melissa survived the coldest night. And if you're going through your own cold night right now, please remember this. You're stronger than you know. Help exists, and your story doesn't have to end in the dark. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, you hold the keys to your own life. Never give them away. I'll see you in the next story.